Right, 10 o'clock on the dot. Hello, everybody. A very warm welcome to today's Learning Lab. For those of you joining a BILT event for the first time, BILT stands for Bridging Innovation and Learning in TVET. The BILT project is co-implemented by UNESCO-UNEVOC here in Bonn with the German Federal Institute for Vocational Education and Training, known as BIBB. The BILT project is sponsored by the German Federal Ministry for Education and Research. My name is Sarah Elson-Rogers and I am the team leader of the BILT project here at UNEVOC. The topic to be presented and discussed today is from UNEVOC's home country, Germany. It is called H2Skills, Planning for the Future, Training Development for the Hydrogen Economy based on local market needs. This project closely aligns with one of the key BILT themes, which is how new green skills are being identified and how they will be integrated into TVET provision. Before we start, I will outline some housekeeping rules. Next slide, please. Today's webinar is held in both English and German, and you should click on the globe icon at the bottom of the screen and select your language of choice. If anyone cannot see this icon or is unable to access the interpretation, please put a message in the chat and someone on our team will try to help you. Please note that this learning lab is being recorded. There will be a question and answer session during the webinar. If you wish to ask a question, please do so in the Q&A feature. Our moderator, Cara Schmidt, will ensure your questions are posed to the panel members. We will not be taking live questions. Please only use the Q&A function at the bottom of the screen. At the end of today's Learning Lab, we will email you with a short questionnaire to gather your feedback. Please do take the time to fill this out. Our Learning Labs are always well attended, but we strive to improve. Next slide, please. Today's webinar will run for 90 minutes. It's split into 3 sections. First, the H2Skills project will be presented by Johanna Braun and Christoph Lenz from the Braunschweig-Lüneburg-Stade Chamber of Crafts and the Lüneburg-Wolfsburg Chamber of Industry and Commerce. Welcome, Johanna and Christoph. Their presentation will be followed by a panel discussion, and we are happy to welcome Frank Alborn, who is the Department Head of Economic Policy and Regional Management, also from the Braunschweig-Lüneburg-Stade Chamber of Crafts. Please welcome Zonke Veldhusen, who is the Department Head of Männchen Bilden, also from the Lüneburg-Wolfsburg Chamber of Commerce. Thanks also to Lars Hardvig from Advanced Training Technologies and Daniel Kipps from the Hydrogen Network of Northeast Lower Saxony. Thanks to all of you for taking the time to present your work to us today, and my apologies for any mispronunciations of names and organisations. I can assure you that our moderator, Cara Schmidt, will do a better job than I have. During the presentations and the panel discussion, as I said, please do post your questions in the Q&A feature of Zoom. Our Learning Lab will then be wrapped up by Michael Schwartz from BIBB, who will also say some words about upcoming BILT project work. Next slide, please, Aldrich. So before passing the floor to our speakers, I would like to say a few words about the objectives of today's webinar. The BILT Learning Labs are designed to present and discuss an innovative practice which addresses a common challenge in TVET and skills needs in Europe, Africa, and the Asia-Pacific regions. And for today, we can't have chosen a more current issue for our economies and industrial development. Namely, what sources of energy are cheaper, greener and accessible to run heavy and light manufacturing, transport and households? What are viable options and what changes are required to adopt them? As the title of today's Learning Lab suggests, we're going to hear about the potential of green hydrogen energy as both an energy source and storage mechanism. The International Renewable Energy Agency estimates that hydrogen will constitute 12% of our global energy use by 2050. And many countries are developing strategies to integrate hydrogen into their energy usage. Germany created such a strategy in 2020. In the H2Skills project, a team of specialists and researchers have been examining what are the skills implications of such an energy transition? Is industry ready? And are learners and workers equipped with the necessary skills to move to new energy options? To put it succinctly, what are the skills transitions required to meet the needs for a green energy transition? The H2Skills project team have been collecting data on these questions and have brought the results to the TVET system to support the development of new curricula. So I shall now pass the floor and a very warm welcome to Johanna and Christoph, who will present the H2Skills project. Over to you both.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. I welcome you to our presentation about the H2Skills project. The project is a cooperative venture between the Lüneburg-Wolfsburg Chamber of Industry and Commerce and the Braunschweig-Lüneburg-Stade Chamber of Crafts. The chambers represent a network of local companies, and among other things, they are also involved in vocational training. My name is Christoph Lenz. I work at the Chamber of Industry and Commerce in Lüneburg. Together with my colleague Johanna Braun from the Chamber of Crafts, I will give you a short introduction to our project in the next few minutes. Our project is fully funded by the European Social Fund and was set up in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. The project was initiated by two skilled worker alliances in close cooperation with the local hydrogen network. The project is located in northern Germany in the northeast of the state of Lower Saxony. It lies right between Hamburg, Bremen, and Hanover, cities which you may be familiar with. The region itself is called a transition region, which means that its gross domestic product is below the EU average. This means that the region lacks large cities and industry. The topic of hydrogen as an alternative energy carrier and storage technology has received increasing attention in Germany in recent years, which has been further intensified by the scarcity of resources in the wake of the Ukraine crisis. At the moment, hydrogen is in a phase of market ramp up in Germany, which means that only a few companies are dealing with the topic, but the trend is rising. The project region has good locational conditions for a hydrogen economy. Due to its proximity to the sea, the region can generate a lot of electricity from wind turbines. There are also biogas plants in the region that can be used to produce hydrogen. In addition, the existing salt caverns can be used for hydrogen storage. H2Skills is dedicated to two core tasks to ensure that the ramp up of the hydrogen economy does not fail due to the lack of qualification of skilled workers. The first goal was to identify the training needs in our region on the topic of hydrogen. Specific questions could be, what technical skills do employees need, and can the skill needs be met through additional qualifications? Based on the requirements, needs-based training programs should be developed and implemented on a trial basis. This gives us the opportunity to try out different formats and topics and make quick changes in order to improve the training programs. The ability to adapt quickly is a distinct advantage over training programs that have a nationwide curriculum, where implementing changes can take up to 10 years. The project started in November last year with the identification of training needs. We completed this part this summer and are now in the process of developing and implementing appropriate qualification measures.
Thank you, Christoph. In the following, I would like to present the methods we used to determine the requirements to meet our first goal, which was to identify the training needs. The method itself are not new, but they are rarely applied to the field of education to identify specific needs of companies right now. And this may lead to outdated and generalized learning content. We first looked at existing regulations to determine the legal requirements, and also looked at similar studies that also deal with the topics of hydrogen and education. In addition, we collected existing courses on hydrogen in Germany and created an overview. So this gave us an idea about the situation in Germany as a whole. To determine the specific needs in our region, we developed an online survey and sent it to all relevant companies in the region. And we supplemented those results with findings from interviews we did with companies, education providers, and network partners. As you can see here, the research has produced many different results. I've highlighted 3 results for you, which I would like to present to you in the following, as they can also be transferred well to other areas. First of all, we see the need for easy access to information, especially when it comes to technical details. Obtaining information is difficult for many companies. So the transfer of academic knowledge into practice should be expanded. We have seen that the creation of a central point of contact, as the project is, for all questions regarding further education and the provision of contacts has proven to be an advantage for the companies. Instead of integrating the topic of hydrogen into existing training occupations, it currently seems sensible to focus on need-based training modules. For example, the companies indicated in the survey that the training should be provided primarily for people between the ages 35 and 50. It is also important that the training programs conclude with the usable qualifications that also qualify for specific activities within the scope of legislation. All our research results are published to enable other education providers and interested parties to adopt those results and methods and apply them to their fields. In order to achieve possible synergy effects, we are already working closely with similar projects. And also, if you are interested in an exchange, just contact us. We would be very happy. And you can also find all the information in a paper we did in August. And if you're interested in that, we can also send you a copy of that. Based on those results, we developed training courses as our second goal. And the first course, which began in October, teaches the basics of hydrogen. It uses various learning formats such as web training, a virtual learning platform, classroom training, as well as supplementary learning videos. Mr. Lars Hardwick is here today, and he can tell you more about that course and the learning concepts later. This course actually has met with very great interest. It was fully booked within 1 day. We would also like to offer a course for teachers from various schools that focuses not only on the theoretical principles, but also on exciting experiments to get students excited about the subjects and renewable energies. And in a third course, we would like to train automotive mechatronic technicians to work on vehicles with fuel cells. And for that, we can rely on an instructor and workshops of a local manufacturer. So thank you for your attention. And I will give over to Kara.
Yes, thank you so much for your presentation, Johanna and Chris, which already gave us a very detailed overview of the H2Skills project and its most recent activities. So thank you for that. You and also Sarah, who gave us some very impressive figures in the beginning of today's learning lab, like hydrogen is predicted to make up to 12% of global energy use by already 2050. You all underlined how green hydrogen holds significant promise in meeting the world's future energy demands. Therefore, it's no surprise that TVET stakeholders from all over the world are currently exploring possibilities to close existing skills gap and to equip workers with the skills necessary to use green hydrogen, not only as an energy source, but also to carefully shape the much needed expansion of its production. Our online participants for today's Learning Lab, we had more than 350 registrations coming from all continents, confirmed this big interest in today's topic of green hydrogen. And a lot of our participants expressed their wish to learn more on how to uncover the hydrogen skills shortage in a local or country context, and how to develop training programs that correspond to the most important need of the market. And to answer these very important questions, I would now like to open today's panel discussion and welcome to the stage Mr. Feldhusen, Mr. Albon, Mr. Kipp, and Mr. Hartwig, who are willing to share their experience and their expertise on how a close collaboration with local industries and existing networks is key for successfully identifying training needs with regard to green hydrogen. Thank you so much for your participation today. And my first question in this context is, what policy and funding changes have you seen at international, national, and local government levels with regard to supporting hydrogen energy as training content to foster greening and digitalization in TVET that have impacted on your own work? I think this question is maybe for you, Mr. Feldhusen and Mr. Albon. Are there any recent changes with regards to politics, regulations or funding schemes that you would like to address? Do you think that the image of the hydrogen economy in Germany has changed?
So let me start. Thank you, Kara, for this question, and a warm welcome to all of you. Since Germany decided on quitting nuclear energy in 2011, energy transition has been of growing political importance. And the necessary efforts of decarbonization and the war in the Ukraine, as Chris mentioned, with its resulting problems of gas supply, speeded up this process. Hydrogen was always part of this transition. And with a growing share of renewable energies in the energy supply in Germany, hydrogen got more and more into focus. And since 2020, we have a national hydrogen strategy in Germany. I think Sarah mentioned it, and also have a strategy in the European Union. Actually, we already have a quite good and flexible funding scheme in Germany and to promote projects in all fields of hydrogen energy. So it's not money that's missing in the first place, but there's a need for a strict policy to foster hydrogen economy. And the European Union and the federal government of Germany rely upon the hydrogen strategies that focus on different goals, always heading for decarbonization and for the use of hydrogen for mobility, energy storage, and industry. Whatever use for hydrogen you think of course, you always need skilled and specially trained persons to master the technique and the different technical challenges. And in the northern part of Germany, there has been put much weight on hydrogen because of the great chances with a wide range of renewable energy providers in the region. Green production of hydrogen is possible, and you also find caverns for hydrogen storage. And the hydrogen network, northeastern Saxony, was built to give a platform for all relevant stakeholders and to bring forward the usage of hydrogen. Daniel Kipp can explain more about it later on. The hydrogen network and some interested companies started to discuss about a necessary qualification scheme with the Chamber of Commerce and with the Chamber of Handicraft, and these chambers that Frank and me represent are responsible for vocational training in our region and also offer a wide range of qualifications for the member firms. And in these discussions, we learned that most companies have a quite different and sometimes blurred vision on the demands. H2Skills was installed as a project to make the demands clearer and to develop first approaches for solutions. And as I think we made some good steps on this path, and Chris and Johanna presented it. That's my part of the answer, and I think Frank has some additional comments.
Yes, thank you, Sönke. You told correctly the big points. It was a Green Deal and the international and the national hydrogen strategy, and on local level, we have very good networking structures, and they are very important for creating new projects like H2Skills. In the last years, we have developed a good, trustful cooperation in our skilled worker alliances, and that's very important to create this project. And we are working, you told, in the hydrogen network. And for us as a Chamber of Crafts, it's very important to look not only at the big companies, and also look at the small companies like craft companies. We want that the small companies participate in this new market of hydrogen technology. So this is our interest, and we want to support craft companies in developing the new market, and for this they need skills, and that's very important.
Thank you very much for these explanations. Before we move on to the next question, I would like to encourage our online listeners to use our Q&A tool. Later, we will have the opportunity to ask them live to the panelists. I will pick them up from the Q&A tool and raise them directly to our panelists. So in this context, please make sure to also specify in your question to whom of our panelists the question should be addressed. Thank you. So my second question of today is, what existing challenges in the German hydrogen economy and in the TVET training in particular can be addressed through analyzing local market needs? I think this is a question for you, Mr. Kipp, Mr. Feldhusen, or Mr. Alborn. Who of you would like to go first?
Yeah, good morning from me. I think I can start with this question.
Thanks.
Just to make a little bit clear what is this network, which is a little bit the basis for this H2Skills project, because it was developed from our network together with the Chambers of Commerce and Crafts in our region. So as mentioned from Johanna and Chris before, hydrogen is an important approach for the decarbonization all over the world. And this was the starting point for us to develop this network. And at the same time, it is an additional approach to solving our current energy crisis here in Germany and all over the world, because hydrogen is the only way to store renewable energy on a larger scale. And I think this is the most important issue for our region, because our region is quite rural in very many areas. So we have no big cities there, and we have no big industrial areas there. So it is necessary to, but on the other hand, we have windcraft, and we have other energy sources to prepare or to produce this this hydrogen. And we are in this phase of market ramp up, and the reason why the project was developed is we call it in German the chicken and egg question. So the question, what has to become first, or what came first, the chicken or the egg? And if we discuss it with our stakeholders in the network, at least 160 members in our network from the whole value chain of hydrogen are in the network. And if we discuss projects concrete in our region concerning hydrogen, it is always the question, what has to come first? It's the vehicles, because we have not the industry in many areas which can use hydrogen. So we discuss it especially in the mobility sector. Or is it the filling station? So if we ask the stakeholders, the guy from the filling station says, okay, I build you a station if you buy 10 vehicles. And the transportation company says, okay, I will buy 10 vehicles if you buy me, if you build the station. Or and the other question is where to get the vehicles from. And in this market ramp up, I think the question of skilled workforces is a very important issue. We heard from all over the network, and this was the reason why we established this project, or developed this project. Because skilled workforces are part of the solution if we want to speed up this market ramp up already. This is a little bit the basis to develop this H2Skills project, and I think we are there in a really early stage of development already in Germany. And we made there several experiences, what are good solutions and what is necessary for the companies. And I am quite close to the companies, and can tell you a little bit more about what is relevant for them, and what do they need already, in addition to this survey Johanna and Chris presented before.
Thank you, Mr. Kipp. Mr. Feldhusen or Mr. Alban, do you want to comment on that?
Yes, I think regarding hydrogen, there are some really special topics of qualification, like, for example, high voltage, high pressure technology, fuel cell technology. And if you for trainings and qualifications for such special topics, the number of participants is important because of its innovation character. A lot of companies do not know exactly which qualifications are necessary and for how many employees. And so this project really was important to get a start for offering such qualifications. And I think it only can be a first step, but it's important to do it.
As Daniel Kipp described the hen-egg problem, we call it in German. I hope it's in English also. an egg problem. What we need first, and he said we need filling stations, and also we need skills. It's also important to have the skills in the companies, because when we go in the mobility sector, then we have trucks, and someone has to repair the trucks, and so we need the skills, and it's also important, like infrastructure, to get the skills.
But I think the issue Sönke mentioned is quite important. If you ask the companies what qualification needs you have concerning hydrogen, they are not able to answer it clearly at this stage. And I think this is a big challenge for us already, to develop the qualification schemes, especially for the needs for the companies. And I think this is a process in which we are now.
Thank you very much for all of these detailed answers. I think we can now move on to the next question, which would be, what are the ways in which new training content on hydrogen energy finds its way into curricula and training regulation? Does this process occur through developing new study programs, or is it more long-term, requiring the development of entirely new occupations to meet the economic demands? Mr. Kipp, Mr. Feldhusen, or Mr. Hartwig, do you want to answer this question? And who would like to go first?
Perhaps I would start.
Thank you.
As you probably know, vocational training in Germany is a dual system. And the qualifications provided in training companies and in vocational schools. And the company training is on the job training based on a national training regulation that are supervised by the chambers. And the vocational training, vocational schools base their education on curricula that are matched with the national training regulations for the different professions. So these training regulations are of big importance, and they are ruled by government authorities. Trade unions, company associations, and also the chambers are taking part in the quite complex process. It takes a lot of time to develop a new profession and a new training regulation, often up to 3 years. But the regulations itself are quite flexible and make it easy to include innovations and new techniques. So I think it will be possible to include H2Skills in existing regulations. There's no need for a new profession, but very much need for special and additional qualifications that can be integrated in training occupations or be imparted in supplementary trainings. So I think upskilling is an important keyword.
It definitely is.
I can add one thing.
Please go ahead.
I assume that the changes in the curricula and in the professional profiles, they will take place at different levels and in different phases in this market ramp up already. I think in the first step, it is necessary to provide further training for the existing staff, because we have in Germany, in general, a lack of skilled workforces. So I think it is necessary in this phase, as I mentioned, the companies cannot say what are the qualification needs. They need support from the chambers, what is necessary. And I think the first step or the focus should be the existing stuff. But in the advanced market ramp up, I think, it can be assumed that there will new jobs or new job profiles will also emerge in this field. And I think this can especially be a chance for this for the sector already, because it can be quite interesting to young people to work in new fields of technology, which are cross-sectoral, as Sönke mentioned. It is also in the field of energy and with pressure and gas. So we had this development also in other vocational fields, that their energy and mechanics in Germany became job profiles together. And I think this can also happen in this hydrogen sector.
Thank you, Mr. Kipp. Mr. Hartwig, do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, I would like to agree to Mr. Kipp and Mr. Feldhusen, and maybe add also a new dimension to the discussion. As we are a training provider, for us, a lot of training needs, to answer the first part of your question, how new training contents comes to us. It comes from our business partners. It comes from our network. We as ATT are part of for example, of an holding of many companies working together under one roof. And within that organization, we have, luckily for us, but also demanding, we have organizations, companies who are involved in building hydrogen filling gas stations. So there's a certain know-how within our organization, and of course at the same time the need. As already said, the workforce is missing. We do not have enough skilled workers. We have some experts, we have of course knowledge about the topic, but we have to train a large amount of own workforce. And we see, of course, we come back to our role, training providers, of course external parties address this as well to us. To add to that, also within the organization there are companies who in our case are involved in high pressure component building, systems for gas, test systems for durability, pressure testing. We have a company involved in building actual electrolysis plants, company using vehicles with hydrogen technology, things like that. So a lot of qualification needs, and I also always, of course, part of it is to have an official qualification, to have approval for that. You must have you must be permitted to do certain jobs. That's very clear. So on the other hand, we of course also provide just knowledge, to say knowledge and skills to a certain degree, also to technical stuff as well as non-technical stuff, which is also of some importance, but I come to this later. Then of course laws, approval, safety regulations play into give us a lot of input on and pressure to develop new training content. Of course, not everything is new. I mean, there are regulations already related and will be valid for hydrogen technology as well. I mean, we have certain safety regulations. We have regulations dealing with high pressure, explosion protections, and so on. They play a role here, of course. What, despite for technical jobs, is to our understanding quite important, is that all employees, all workforce somehow related to jobs in that new field, in that new industry, need to have a basic understanding of what they are dealing now with. So there are lots of jobs, also to that I come later, which need to have some basic understanding. And this is also part of our focus as a training provider. I'm very happy that, and I think it's of course absolutely necessary, that there are governmental and EU-funded projects like this one here, as well as others, H2Giga, sub-projects, High Plant 100, and what names we have here all around these kind of funded projects, which are very important to enhance the development force of all companies, organizations who want to drive this topic, this future-orientated topic forward for all of us in Germany, in Europe, worldwide. And to the second part of the question, I would like also to open the view a little bit, the needs or the economic demands. Of course, new occupations are one part of the story. You know how we qualify, that was already mentioned by Mr. Feldhusen, how we qualify in Germany with the dual system. I, as myself, I worked more than 10 years abroad. I know other systems as well by experience. So there are, so I also think of on-the-job training, of course, yeah, not just the German way. And when I consider this, then there are, we have a duty and a responsibility to cover needs for certain occupations, but also for people who just assigned to certain work. Yeah, how many of us work in a different occupation than the one we learned? And how do we cover this need? And we cover it by, Mr. Kipp has mentioned that, or the direction I now want to emphasize, it's further training in various regards. We know about, when we consider adult education, we know about learning philosophies like 70-20-10. And that, without going into detail there, that tells us that people learn most, all of us, in our daily work life, not in some external courses. It's just our daily work life, how we organize this, how it's interlinked together with everything we do, with the work of all our colleagues, peer group learning, and so on. And hence, beside official qualifications, we need a ton of various smaller and mid-sized learning and qualification opportunities. That's my belief, which are fitting well into everyday's work life of various professions, existing ones, new ones, but as well as also job assignments, and as well as the respective organizational structures. All has to fit into work life as well, of the employees, the work staff, as well as the company organizations.
Thank you, Mr.
That's it for the
Hartwig.
moment.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much for this very detailed answer. And looking at the questions that are coming in through the Q&A tool, I can say that you have already covered lots of the different topics that are raised in the Q&A tool and questions. So thank you very much for that. And I can see that lots of our online participants are really interested in learning and teaching modules with regard to green and hydrogen. So I would like to dive a little bit deeper into this topic. And my next question would be in this regard: in what ways do learning methods and environments vary between different crafts and trades when developing hydrogen economy-based training programs? And I think, again, this question is mostly for you, Mr. Hartwig and Mr. Albon. Who of you would like to answer first?
I can start.
Perfect, thank you.
We identified two branches of crafts for using hydrogen. It's a motor vehicle mechanics and the heating engineer. These two branches are very important for hydrogen technology. And I think in the long time, H2Skills will be integrated in the vocational trainings, and it's also like electromobility in the mobility sector. Skilled workers now get skills in high voltage technology, and later they also get special skills in H2. so in the long time, we will integrated it in the vocational training and in the master craftsman examination, and now it's important to get the skills in education and training courses now. Maybe these two branches of crafts are relevant.
Thank you. Mr. Hartwig, do you want to continue?
Yes. So where do I start? That's a big field here. Okay, different crafts and trades, you said. Okay, maybe on a general scale. First of all, a few comments. On one hand, there's of course generally knowledge and skills. On the other hand, more specific ones related to different crafts and trade. That's always the case. So whenever we design training programs, they shall fit to target groups. That's not a secret for any educator. So we have to know the target group quite well, their needs, where they have to get started with new knowledge and skills that have to be acquired now in relation to the topic at hand. And we have, of course, various groups. It's difficult to just slim that down to just a few. I mean, we have fitters, we have mechanics, technicians, engineers, maintenance personnel. In that field, we have operators, designers, and so on. So this is quite a vast field of different crafts, different target groups, and there's a lot of ground to cover, so to say. In principle, just from a tendency, if you consider, to our experience, if you consider, of course, more physical jobs, then you need to have physical training environment to allow the application of knowledge and skill to be successful. An operator obviously needs a different kind of training, despite some foundation of basic knowledge, as a fitter or a mechanic person who is responsible for installation or maintenance and so on. And then the other point I mentioned already before, but despite of all these different crafts, what is about the organizational support staff? What is about the managerial positions, staff members in marketing, distribution, purchasing, sale, and so on? To some level, they also need, if they are related to companies and organizations involved in hydrogen technology, of course, to some degree, they need to have a basic understanding, be sensitive to the related topics, to safety, to basic understanding of this resource they are dealing now with. And despite different crafts and trades, what I have already mentioned, of course, as somebody developing training programs, you always consider also the level of understanding that is needed. But then we come back to theory and education. So and that's a question we always have to ask ourselves. To what degree the target group we're talking about has to just remember or understand certain context, the concepts behind, do they have to recall the facts about it, describe or identify certain aspects for their work, or do they have to apply and analyze the content to a certain degree, or on the highest levels, do they have to evaluate or create new contents, new machinery, and new technology, and so on? So that level of understanding which is needed, of course, then also impacts the training concept or the training program you have to set up. That's a demand we always have.
Yes, thank you for this explanation and for elaborating a little bit more on this very important aspect. Before we open the panel discussion and take up questions from our online audience, my colleague Valbona just provided me already with some of them, so thank you for that, Valbona. I would like to ask one last question to all of our panelists today. What have you found to be the biggest hurdle to overcome when creating training programs for a sector that is so rapidly expanding? And in what ways can the private sector, TVET providers, educators, and also funders support this process? So please join me on the stage, also Johanna and Christoph, Mr. Kipp, and maybe all of you would like to give a short statement to that question. Who would like to go first?
Yeah, I can start.
Perfect, thank you.
Like one big problem is that there are not enough teachers right now because there are only a few people who already have the experience in hydrogen and can give on their knowledge. So you always should think about that in an early stage of developing new courses, because courses also change depending on what kind of teacher you have for the course, because like every teacher has different experiences. So that is one thing you should really think about in like an early stage. And also a big hurdle that the companies have is that they don't know what they need themselves, as already mentioned before. And also the needs change when the sector expands. So courses should be monitored to keep them up to date. And for this stage, we have found that modular training programs might be the best. So like every company can choose those modules who meet their needs best.
And I would also add that the regulations on qualifications should be clear, so that companies know what kind of qualifications they need to meet the legal requirements. As the market is growing, it also gets more important to work on training programs on a nationwide context, so that not every region has its own standards. That also comes into play in the long run, I guess.
Yeah, I think the biggest hurdle is that hydrogen usage is in a quite early stage in Lower Saxony. And until now, you only have a few transport vehicles using hydrogen. Industry just starts to think about hydrogen usage, and starting trainings in such a surrounding is pioneer work. And as I said in the beginning, you need participants. And I think that's the main bottleneck. And the second bottleneck is already mentioned, is to find well-trained and expertise trainers, not only for education companies, but also as instructors for vocational training in the companies. And so the trainer will be a big topic for us.
Yeah, that's the thing I would also like to stress. The trainer aspect is important. I think we have a lack of teachers and trainers which can offer the necessary information in the field of hydrogen. So this is also a phase of market ramp up. Another aspect I would like to add is that we have to do in most cases with a qualification of individuals. So the critical mass is also a question, and therefore this cooperation projects are quite relevant or important, because within this cooperation we can build this critical mass of needs, and yeah, as we mentioned, or as we hit before, most of the companies, they cannot say what are their needs in qualification. So I think this is a quite important process where we have to work all together on.
Yes, I think really they all told the big points. I think really we need more light in this fog. Yes. we are on a very early step now, and companies has the problem, and we as a chamber have a problem, and education has a problem, schools has the problems, and I think that in other countries the same.
So I might add here, again, something from the educational point of view. Already said, yeah, we have and we feel it as a training provider, especially training providers specialized in technical knowledge, technical training programs. Of course, there's a lack of experts, there's a lack of training staff, there's a lack of technical authors, for example, yeah, to come up with all these great learning documentations we would like to have, yeah, and learning material. That slows down at the moment or hinders us. This is clearly a hurdle at the moment. What can training providers, for example, do in that regard? And I assume everybody here in this round as well has to do with, for example, digital solutions. Yeah, with digital solutions, we have a chance to reach a critical mass of people that we cannot do with the few trainers we have around nowadays. It will take time to train up more training staff, but with a certain degree and up to a certain degree, it's possible, of course, with digital learning solutions, interactive e-learnings or video courses, things like that, reach a critical mass of people, at least to establish a certain amount of knowledge, of basic knowledge related to the topic that we have to use. On the other hand, we have as a provider for training programs, think about, of course, smaller learning units. Yeah, that has to do with many aspects. Yeah, nowadays generations learn more with small and modern devices. That's why we need digital solutions as well in the mix. And then also daily organization. Yeah, time is very often more than money, the most critical factor in these success stories we would like to achieve here in our training programs. So very often difficult to send employees for just 1, 2, or 3 days or full week for some training programs. So we need some solutions that allow an integration in the company's organization of these training programs. We have to add it to the mix, yeah, smaller learning units to make it possible in normal work, organization, and private life. So it has to be integrated. Yeah, lifelong learning is integrated learning. That's we have to consider when coming up with training programs. And an advice we of course always give when we are on that topic of technical qualification, as well as in others, blended learning. Use blended learning concepts in every way to bring theory and practical training together to enhance the efficiency of qualification programs.
Thank you. A big thank you to all our participants. I think in this final round, you mentioned so many things that are very important and that are also picked up by our online listeners in the chat and in the Q&A function. And looking at all the questions that are coming in, I see lots of them correspond again to, are related to the training courses that were developed within the H2Skills project. So there's a lot of interest here. So I would like to ask you to maybe elaborate a little bit on that. What is could you give a little bit more details with regard to that? I know that the first course only started in October, like 1 or 2 weeks ago, but maybe you can give a little bit more details about the target group size, the profile of the learners that you're working with, and what you plan to do in the future.
Yes, I can start with that. We started out by developing 3 different types of courses. And this first course that you mentioned already started last week. It's in cooperation with SK-ATT that Lars Hartwig represents today. And we are working together with Christian Machens, who is the host of this course. And as Lars Hartwig already mentioned, we are trying to use methods of blended learning. So we do have online lessons. We do have video lessons that the participants can access during the course, and we also do use online platforms where you have an avatar where you can use this avatar to have a classroom-like situation on this online platform. And in the end, this course will also have one day where we meet up in person, and we put everything that has been learned to the test and to the practice. So in the end, participants get a certificate after successfully doing the test, and that is mainly meant to give an introduction into hydrogen technologies. This whole course is like a basic course, basic introduction into hydrogen technologies. The second course that we are planning on is more focused on the vehicle part of hydrogen technologies. So we already learned about gas pressure systems. This is going to be the central part in this second course. So the target group is a little bit different. It's more focused on vehicle mechatronics in Germany, and it will be in cooperation with a company that is close to Lüneburg, and this company already builds cars and especially trucks, like trucks with a hydrogen propulsion. This will focus more on those trucks and gas pressure systems. So that's a very specific course, and but it's already also full, unfortunately. So it's not, can't join anymore. And the last course that we developed will be for like the teachers program. So for teachers at the vocational training center, we want to provide information on hydrogen and also show setups for experiments that can help to convey the topics of hydrogen in school.
Thank you, Mr. Lenz. I think this already covered lots of the aspects that our online listeners were keen to learn more about. And do you plan to? Oh, I see, Mr. Hartwig, you raised your hand. Do you want to? Yes, go ahead, please.
Yes, I would like. Thank you very much, Mr. Lenz. Pointed out very nicely about the variety of methods. So the course 1, which Mr. Lenz has mentioned, is about basic knowledge in hydrogen. And I would like to point out twofold aspects. Number 1, again, is regarding the way of learning. And I said already, we believe in blended learning concepts, and blended can be in various ways, of course. When we consider new learning methods, of course, we do not consider old ways of learning and to exchanges with new ways. No, of course not. It's always both together, make best of both worlds, or all the kind of ways of learning. It has to fit. Yeah, it has to fit to the nowadays demands. And therefore, it's never black and white. It's about it's always about a learner experience. It's about various ways and methods of learning, having milestones to achieve, but giving freedom to learners to do it in their own time, in their own speed, in their own environment. So to find there the right mixture is always a challenge. And if it goes well, the learners in best case, of course, has a lot of fun in doing what he is doing. Yeah. So, and there comes, of course, also the idea of gamification to bring in a mix in qualification programs, and that, of course, we're trying to do. That's why we also go in the digital world to use a virtual environment. But as I expect most of you know, there are hurdles in virtual reality. You need kind of glasses. That's an investment. Why should most companies do this? So we have decided if we add this to the mix, we use something like desktop virtual reality, and that all our kids know from games around the world where you have such an avatar. And in that case, it's now not a playing field; it's an academy. It's not a serious game. It's very serious learning, but it's fun learning, hopefully. Yeah. And the keyword there is immersive learning, of course. Dive into this environment digitally, and then there's a more efficient way in learning than just like video conferences. How are we doing now in this very moment? And maybe a few sentences on the other side regarding the content of this basic course. We have 5 clusters which we dive into. One is basic knowledge of hydrogen itself, then basic hydrogen production, basics in hydrogen storage, hydrogen conversion, and safe handling of hydrogen. Somebody would like to know more about, and maybe just a brief keywords. So if we talk about basic knowledge of hydrogen, it's about history of hydrogen, the application of hydrogen. It's some knowledge about physical properties or characteristics and chemical ones, as well as hydrogen purity, some basic facts of thermodynamics, electrochemistry basics, fluid mechanics, and hydrogen diffusion. This all, you can talk about this and then learn about this, I expect, for years. So we can only scratch to some degree below the surface to raise awareness in a basic course, but we at least have to address it. Yeah, and then so it goes on and on. I do not want to bore you with the more detailed content, but hopefully this gives you a basic idea that this is already some broadness in what we address, but of course we can only dive in so deep as time allows. And there comes, that's the last thing I say, the idea also to provide video courses. So there our trainer and expert is telling in roughly 11 hours all about these things in even more detail. And so that gives then everybody who's interested more in that topic a chance to go through this with his own speed, like I said, and dive in a little bit more deeper. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hartwig. I don't think at all that you are boring our listeners, because we have so many questions coming in with regard to exactly these aspects. And I think it's quite important that you illustrated quite well how the H2Skill project does not only cover like green aspect, but it's also a very good example of the green and digital transformation of TVET and also of the economy. But of course, developing new TVET programs using also digital methodologies in those training programs, they all come with a financial implication. And how do you, I know that the project has been funded, for example, by the ETF or by ETF fundings. And but do you see that there's an increase in funding, for example, not only in Germany, but maybe you know also a little bit about it in other country contexts? Are there more fundings coming in? Is it difficult to acquire funds for this topic of green hydrogen for the TVET sector? What are your experiences in this regard? Maybe this is also a
Let
question
me
with
say
regard to the network.
some
Yes,
words
exactly.
to it.
Thank you, Mr. Kipp.
I especially know the funding system here in Germany and especially in Lower Saxony, and we have I think on different levels we have funding schemes which can be used for training aspects in context of hydrogen. We have also additional funding, especially for the infrastructure and for the vehicles and so on. So this change in the energy sector is supported by different funding. But if we have a closer look on this training aspects, I think there can be used this ESF funding schemes already, which are available in Germany in every federal state, and it is European funding. So I think it is also available in other European countries which are members of the European Union, and it depends on the programs which are developed under this schemes in these countries, but I think this is a good funding source for such things, and I think this is also an instrument which can be used in the future in our region for the follow-up from this H2Skills project. And additionally, we have here in Germany different funding schemes from the Agentur für Arbeit, which also offers especially training funding for the single worker, which can be used, and I think it's not a lack of funding actually to start this this training in hydrogen context.
Thank you. Maybe one last question with regard to train the trainer, training methodologies, etc. Do you plan to open your courses also to an international public at some point? I think at the moment they are only targeting the region of Lower Saxony, but in the future, do you plan on including also more international partners, target groups, etc.?
I think in the context of H2Skills, in the context of our project, we plan on doing this as a trial. So we try out different concepts and we try out different measures of conducting these lessons, and so we will also evaluate those courses that we do now and try to find out what works best. And I think putting this to an international level is still several steps ahead. We can now try to work on these courses and try to find out what works best. But this will stay on a regional level, maybe on a German-wide level in the next step. But an international level is not yet to be foreseen, because also the regulations are very different from country to country, and also they're already very difficult if you just look at Germany. So there's a lot that we have to incorporate in those courses, but I wouldn't say that this cannot be that our courses, they can be a scheme for other countries, for other education providers. So I guess maybe we can offer some insight to others that plan on doing this on an international level.
Thank you. Now we have already brought the international level a little bit to our discussion, and we have so many questions with regard to how could a project like H2Skills work in another regional or also another country context. So in your experience or in your opinion, what do you think? What should be altered with regards to the H2Skills problem so that it can also work in another context? How should they proceed to analyze their own specific market needs? I think this is a very broad question, and we can surely hear input from a lot of you. Who would like to
Yes, so
start?
I can start.
Thank you, Johanna.
So when we began the project, we didn't know much about the region itself and the training needs in our region. So that would be the case for any other region on the world as well. So what we did was doing the online survey and asking the companies what they need. And we actually found that the participants on the online survey was not very well, because like the people didn't know the needs by themselves. So what really helped us was talking to the people, talking to the local networks, if there are networks, like if there's a hydrogen network, that would be perfect, but also if there are any industrial networks and other networks. So because those people know which companies might be interested, so they can give you the contacts. And I think that's where you should start, talking to the companies and making yourself an overview about what the companies need, also what kind of courses are already there in the country, and maybe it might be a little bit easier if it's in English, for example, so you can use other English courses and apply them. Like not many countries speak German, so we are kind of set on the German space. Yeah, so that's where I would start from.
Thank you, Johanna. I think Mr. Kipp, you would like to add on that.
Yeah, one additional aspect can be to start with a segmentation, what branches or sectors you are working with in your region. So it is there are in some cases there are completely different needs from the mobility sector or from the industry or from the heating sector, for example. And I think a good approach can be to make at the first step market segmentation and to talk to different stakeholders from this region. As Johanna mentioned, this survey, online survey, brought not so many information because we are in this early stage. I think a good approach is to talk to relevant stakeholders to develop first, to identify first starting points in this market sectors.
Thank you. Any additional comments on that? Okay, because I would like to dive a little bit more even in this thematic, because today we have participants coming from lots of different countries at lots of different levels of economy. So lots of them are coming from developing countries, from emerging economies, and those maybe have also an education system that is not that much formalized like our German system, but they are working more within the informal sector where recognition of prior skills is one of the most important aspects. What kind of advice would you give them when analyzing market needs, when developing courses? Do you have something that you would like to tell them? How could a project like H2Skills work in such a context? It's a difficult question, I know.
I think, as Johanna already mentioned, our direct contact to the companies and our direct companies to people in the educational sector were most beneficial to us. We see that if you look at the personal or the staff managers at companies, then they can give you the most information about what they need. If you go directly to the companies and try to talk to them directly, that is the best advice that I can give at this moment. I think, as Daniel Kipp already mentioned, it's very specific in every country, because hydrogen has a lot of fields where it can be applied, and that means that that it's very, very diverse. and also the training has to be very diverse when it comes to applying hydrogen in a specific country. We see that coming from Northeast Lower Saxony, we have a very different region than other developed regions in Germany that, for example, have more industry. So our findings might not apply to, for example, North Rhine-Westphalia or Baden-Württemberg or other regions that have more developed industries. So I think it's quite hard to give like one answer to this question. So I would just say talk to the companies directly, try to find out what the needs are by talking to them, by doing interviews, and that would be my answer.
Yes, I think talking to the companies is very important, and the German chamber system has also chambers of foreign trade in very many countries, and also in countries, in emerging countries. And perhaps it is good to talk to chamber of foreign trade, because they have members from Germany working in these countries, and they also have members of these countries itself. And I think this could be a possibility to have a good cooperation between Germany and the country you would to learn something more about the needs in H2Skills topics.
Thank you. So I'm a little bit overwhelmed with questions because so many are coming in. So I'm turning to my colleagues. Is there one question that has been asked very often, because I'm afraid we are also running out of time a little bit. But to our online community, don't worry, we are collecting all of the questions, and we can also answer them after our webinar today. And we can upload, for example, a sheet with the most recent, with the most important Q&As, and publish it together with the recording of today's Learning Lab. So I'm looking to my colleagues. Is there one particular question to finish this panel discussion? Okay, so then let me warmly thank you. Give a warmly thank you to all of our participants today. I believe that you have shared with us so many helpful information and so valuable expertise that will support TVET stakeholders in different countries and in different contexts to tackle skills shortage and to address market needs with regards to green hydrogen. So thank you for that, and thank you for helping us realize this learning lab today. And now, without further ado, I would like to hand over to my colleague Michael Schwarz, who is a senior technical advisor and our BILT team leader here at VIBB. And he is going to share with us some more resources on this very important topic, and also give a little outlook on upcoming BILT events. Thank you, and go ahead, Michael.
Thank you, Cara. I would once again like to thank our partners from H2Skills first for sharing their experience with us, especially also understanding this process from mapping training needs, as you described it, quite actually tricky from companies that do not know what their needs are, to developing a training content that is relevant and implementing the training through training modules that reflect that need, and also with this timely component of integrating it into the workflow of a company. I think what was really inspiring was that your project is at an early stage. And so I think for our participants, I think it was quite tangible to understand what your difficulties in the beginning were and how you dealt with it. So thank you a lot to all of you for being with us today. I would like to give some further information on additional resources. As you know, we are tackling the issue of greening TVET within BILT, but nevertheless, it was the first time that we touched this issue of green energy in one of our learning labs. There's one other project where we compiled innovation and learning practice of, that is more training for electric vehicles maintenance. And this you can find on the BILT website with a lot of material, but I guess that also from this example, we have to discuss this with the H2Skills project, but I think that would also be worthwhile to make an innovation and learning practice out of that project. Nevertheless, we are looking for more innovative examples in this regard, also from Asia Pacific, Africa, and Europe on this green energy sector. So if you are part of an innovative project, if you know one, please get in touch with us and let us know, because I think it will be worthwhile to share it with our BILT network. What is currently new from our end is a guideline for training companies on the road to becoming more sustainable. It has 4 key areas and describes how to design sustainable learning venues through different areas of action. And it also provides different practice-oriented suggestions and solutions. So you can download it under this link or scan the QR code, and please check it out. I would also like to let you know what's coming up next, what events are coming up next. So first, we have 25 and 26 of October, we have the UNESCO TVET Strategy Lounge, which will be a hybrid international conference where everybody's invited to join. It contains of a first day, which is a political strategy day and wants to introduce the new TVET strategy of UNESCO, and a second one, which presents like also BILT and another innovation and learning practices of BILT during an afternoon session. So please join if you're interested. Furthermore, we also have the BIDB Congress in the same week named H2Skills, Thinking Ahead of Progress. The first day of that will be streamed, and the streaming will be available from 1 to 6 p.m. So please check it out on the BILT and the BIDB website once you're interested. In the beginning of November, from 7 to 9, we will have our BILT Bridging event for Africa, which is a hybrid event. So it's also possible for you to participate online. The focus will be on the dual transition on greening and digitalization in the hospitality sector, and addresses specifically TVET experts in the field of hospitality and tourism. This event is co-hosted by the Technical Vocational and Education and Training Authority of Kenya and supported by the African Union. Yeah, we will be back with our next Learning Lab in the beginning of 2023. You will receive in the next few days a short feedback survey about today's Learning Lab, and we ask everyone kindly to answer that so we can improve our work and get the events better to the use or to the needs you have. We are looking forward to seeing you in the next Learning Lab in the beginning of 2023. Everybody who attended today will get an automatic invitation. And on behalf of myself, my colleagues at BILT, and our partners at H2Skills, I would like to thank you for joining today, and we hope to see you soon at a future BILT event. Goodbye and thank you.